Now, a common theme that you want to start to integrate when you're creating, like, what are my staples? What are my 4, 5 key movements that I'm going to have in every lesson that are going to give my athletes the ability to explore and also enhance my ability to coach and see positions that they can get in and get out of in their pitch. One of the common themes here is we're always going to express vertically, then horizontally. So what do I mean by that? When we look at our first staple, the front foot elevated reverse slider, I'm driving vertically to the ceiling. This is going to be the easiest portion of starting to understand and figure out a pattern and a position that we want to be able to control, command, get in and out of. Then we move on to something that's horizontally based. So in our pitch, we're trying to create as much horizontal energy as possible. And the reason the vertical exercises will be easier, whether it's vertical hip extension, vertical flexion, moving from flexion to extension vertically as opposed to horizontally, this is a more horizontally based on the right, working through these moments, because now we're putting ourselves in a position where this is familiar for us in terms of, if I stand you up, this is going to be how I'd like you to drive through the rubber to create that same energy to get to extension in this manner. The only difference here is that when we put the foot on the wall and when we elevate the shoulders, working through deep flexion into extension as opposed to the slider lunge, now gravity is assisting them in keeping tension in this foot. Why? Because if I don't keep tension in the foot, even if I'm not doing it consciously, I'm going to fall. My brain understands that. So that's why I'm going to enable them to push a little more. And I also, while I'm doing this, I want to talk to them more and more and more about, hey, feel that. Why do you think it is that your foot has to feel pressure without you even thinking about it? Well, if I don't, I'm going to fall down. Okay, so are we having that pressure when we're trying to drive and get in position to push? All these things that they're feeling here create talking points for the athlete to be able to learn and explore within their pitch and give us an ability to coach. So that theme is always ever present in whatever we're doing. Say if you pick something else for yourself, think of it in those two ways. It's going to be easier for them to express power vertically than it is horizontally. And we have to bridge the gap. And this exercise here on the right, the reason we work elevated is to bridge and start to close, and close that gap into moving through items that, okay, now we're starting to get familiar with what it would feel like to stand up and get hip extension. So when we elevate, one of the key points here in the setup is that, number one, and always understand the setup is so important. Be maniacally detailed about where you want things to be because it's important. We want the toes and the knees to be in line. We can start with the foot right there. Our shoulders, well, where our platform is always going to be slightly lower than where our pressure point is in our foot. Okay, we want to have the top half right here. We don't want the middle of our back. We don't want any of this area, top half of the shoulders. And then the other key point is really, really accentuate working into extension without going into flexion. So what do I mean by that? You can see that I'm hanging that right leg. So this is already going to create some tension in the front side of my thigh to give me some eccentric ability there, meaning I'm having to hold the leg in place. And one of the key moments is as I rise and as I pull and push the wall through, I want you to notice how once I get to extension right here, I'm in extension, I'm not bringing this thigh back. I want to keep and attack my glutes behind me. So I want to keep that same line of force because if gravity's pushing directly this way, I'm going to get the maximum amount of contraction by driving in this manner too. So one of the things I tell my athletes is, and you can focus on them, is once they get their knee into this position, I'm driving my knee into the ceiling with my glute. When you see athletes struggle or they try to get to hip flexion, the reason they're doing that is because they're trying to find a way to push away from the wall to use their quad and their calf instead of calf, and you can see my hamstring working right there in that manner. We want that calf to hamstring connection because that's going to put our pelvis in position to drive and attack the glutes. And we want to do this controlled and slowly. Biggest thing I want you to notice is you're going to have a lot of athletes here at the ankle. Do you see I'm not too flexed into plantar flexion? I'm just pushing. You're going to see where they're going to drive that heel, and it'll almost be right here. Things you want to talk about with your athlete. Where do you feel that? If they're in this position and all they feel more is their calf, it's likely because they're going through too much ankle flexibility to plantar flex, and so they're using their calf to give them the idea that they're getting to hip extension, but they're not able to get to hip extension. They're just using the range of motion in their calf to disguise it. So that's an important thing to understand, and we talked about that in one of our bridge exercises in one of the webinars. So once we get to this position, now we're driving. You can ISO here, anything 5 to 7 seconds as a warm-up to get their glutes ready to go. You can put this in between pitches and make them hold this so they think of whether you think they're not pushing with the left or the right leg enough. Hey, what does this feel like? Okay, now let's go pitch. I want you to find that feeling. Find this contraction, this aggression in your pitch. If you can't find it, one of two things is happening. You're not in position to do it, or you're not taking the time and being patient enough to actually drive back into the ground. Then we'll go slowly back into flexion. Notice, watch my heel. There's not a lot of height change there at the heel. That's one of the things to be aware of as our athlete is moving. My heel is following the angle of my thigh that's on the wall very closely. So deep hip flexion. You can even have athletes who struggle. Once again, if they can't do the front foot elevated split squat, this is a great ISO hold just with them in flexion and the foot flexed like that to have to hold for 45 seconds so they start to begin the connection of calf, hamstring, keeping their pelvis in position and stable, as opposed to, the gravity impacting them and them being really bad at that front foot elevated. So this is another staple for me, deep hip flexion. We can hold here. And then it doesn't have to be fast. Fast would be if you already have an athlete who does it well and you want to start to get more explosive for them. But we'd always want to start with more stability. So if I don't possess stability first, I have nothing to put power into. So we can go 3 seconds down, and then 1 second to get up, hold for 1 second, see the calf and hamstring, and then down again.